the sessions are recorded and they will all be put on the website of Water4All after this session. The slides are also going to be shared. The session is about 2 hours. And yeah, the topic of today's session is investor readiness. So for this topic, we have two very qualified speakers with us. Alp Catalan from Desalinator. He's a business developer at Desalinator, and he has also been an investor. So he brings both views with him today. And Henrik Norgard. And I don't know, I think I butchered your last name. I'm sorry for that. And he works as Clean as the startup manager / lead. And yeah, he has given many startups advice on investor readiness. So, and he also organizes Clean, part of Clean, the water tech tour. And last year, if you were in Copenhagen, he was part of the organizers. And he's gonna talk about the whole water tech tour and the philosophy behind it. And yeah, then we will have a workshop about investor readiness, and we are gonna map the different investors in the water technology space. So thank you all for joining, and Alp, I will give you the floor to take it away and give your presentation.
Thank you so much, Roxanne, and hello everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll just start by sharing my screen. Yeah. So can you let me know once you can see my screen all fine?
We can see your screen,
Yes.
but
Great.
yeah, now we see it perfectly.
Yeah. And if I do like
And
this, do you see the screen moving?
yes, we do. And
Perfect.
during your presentation, if there's any question, please write them down in the chat, and then we're going to have a small Q&A afterwards, and you can unmute yourself and ask any questions you have.
Perfect. Thank you, Roxanne. So hi everyone. For a bit of background, I'm Alp Catalan. I'm the commercial lead for the Middle East and North Africa for Desalinator, and I'm also looking after investor relations and business development in general. I've got a background in climate consulting. I used to work at a company called the Carbon Trust, and there we would run clean energy accelerators backed by the UK government to support energy entrepreneurs looking into sub-Saharan African and South Asian markets for clean energy access. So you can think technologies like mini grids, battery storage, and solar home systems. And I also had a stint in venture capital at a company called World Fund, which is a 300 million euro climate tech fund backing innovators across industry, mobility, energy, and agriculture. And for the past year and a half, I've been with Desalinator, which is a world's first circular desalination platform. So basically, we help water-stressed communities and industries to generate ultra pure water from saline water, whether that's seawater, brackish groundwater, or other forms of wastewater. So in my capacity, both from the Carbon Trust as an advisor, World Fund as an investor, and Desalinator as a builder and innovator, I've been able to kind of see the fundraising process from different lenses. So I just wanted to kind of take a bit of time to give you a few of my insights, lessons, and tips. Um, I'll just cover, it's going to be very simple bullet points, and I'll be covering it in three areas. One is on investor identification and outreach. another one on investor
Um,
materials, and the third
I'm
on,
sorry.
oh,
Um,
yes,
we lost
Roxanne.
your slides. We do not see them anymore.
Oh, sorry, let me share again. Bum, bum, bum. Share entire screen. Hopefully, I should be back. Do you see the slides?
Yes.
Yeah, so the three areas will be investor identification, investor materials, and then some thoughts on accelerators and programs and what works and what I think doesn't work as well. On investor identification and outreach, the most important thing is to keep a track of a long list of the key investors that, as a startup, you want to target. And as many of you will be aware, it is a numbers game, and most investors will invest in only 1% or less of the companies that they see. So they get a constant inflow of deal flow. So I remember at World Fund, we'd be receiving at least 40 to 50 different startup pitches on a weekly basis. And that's on a combination of ways. It's either through the website, through connections, through the partners, through events. So basically, these VCs are being bombarded with so many startups. So we really want to make sure that you reach out to a large number of them that meet the focus area. So the key thing is understanding their thesis, and that means what stage of investment they're looking for, what's the minimum check sizes that they do, what are the sectors and the geographies. And so I think when you're looking at it from an accelerator or a supporter point of view, keeping those lists where you clearly categorize investors across their stage, check size, sector, and geography can make it so much easier for the startups to identify and access the relevant investors. So I think having that list that can then be shared with the startups or can be introduced to startups is great. And also, one of the best ways to engage with investors is through warm intros rather than cold outreach, whether it's email or an online form or LinkedIn. Getting that warm intro by someone who knows the investor always kind of puts the startup at the top of their list. So if accelerators can enable and provide those warm intros, it's a huge help to the startups. And obviously, it's about being aware that the first introduction, pitch, meeting, it's not about getting the investor to invest, but it's about getting them hooked. It's about getting them interested enough to want to explore the startup in more detail. And so, I do think these types of ecosystem programs and networks should be quite friendly and easy with the connections. Rather than gatekeeping, it's fine to introduce multiple startups. And investors always appreciate when they have a constant pipeline and deal flow coming through. So I appreciate that, sometimes the networks and accelerators, they want to kind of stage gate startups before introducing them, but actually investors are not going to be worried if, out of 10 startups that you introduce, if only one of them is relevant, that's even worth seeing the other nine for them. Another final key point on this identification and outreach is that fundraising always takes 2 to 3 times longer than what startups think. So providing ample runway, ample time, and ample preparation is key. Because if you're just thinking about doing it, okay, in 3 months' time, I'm gonna have the investor outreach done, the due diligence done, and the money in the bank. It really very rarely is the case. So I think engaging with the startups even before they think they're prepared can also help them out with the whole identification and outreach. Regarding materials, I would say from the investor lens, first impressions really matter. And even if you're receiving a deck, it does sound perhaps superficial, but whether you receive a kind of well-polished deck, which is clear, consistent, and makes sense, is very different to something that maybe is, it's a bit convoluted, it's got a lot of technical jargon, doesn't seem to have been reviewed properly. So I think the quality of the material does make a difference. And the key thing is from the startup lens, you want to make it as easy as possible for the investor to follow your story. So I think following the tried and tested formats for decks, there's so many online publications and decks that you can find. The classic one that most people are familiar with is Guy Kawasaki's 8 to 10 slide deck, which follows the typical story of the problem, the solution, the differentiator, track record, business model, and financials. And oftentimes simplicity wins because anyone who has DocSend, where you can basically track who's been looking at your materials, you can see that investors typically don't spend more than 30 seconds or a minute looking at intro decks. So you do want to have it simple with the key messages being conveyed. So that's always useful to keep in mind when you're advising startups to keep it simple. Then there's the introduction of layers. So I think this is also quite key because you'll want different materials for different stages of the fundraising. And so an investor deck, it's different to have a general intro deck. If you're going to do your first pitch, you want to be able to get through it within 3 minutes. It should be mostly images and charts, and you can talk through the story. Then you'll have a version which is maybe 10 minutes long and it's more detailed, might go more into the track record and case studies. But you also want a version that you can send to an investor and without talking through it, it makes sense. So then that would be a bit more text heavy and it would have more on the sources and it would be more dense. So having those different types of materials for different circumstances and different audiences is also very important. And likewise with the investor deck, it's the same with the data room because usually investors in their kind of first stage of commercial due diligence, they'll want to go through the key materials, which is the pitch deck and the financial model and any other research materials that you might have. But the financial model is basically the key um, document that they'll want to look at. And so you might want to have a data room prepared that has just some of those key high level materials without the depth of all your documentation, all your HR materials and policies and case studies. So yeah, having the layers of the data room, one which you can send out relatively easily, perhaps even without an NDA, and then another one that you send out once you're more engaged in the due diligence process, ideally after an NDA. But obviously, different investors also have are usually reluctant to sign NDAs because they see so many different startups that if you get into being bogged down with signing NDAs for every startup that you're engaged with, it's just too much paperwork, too much time, and too much risk. And then a final point on this is about team readiness. So usually it will be one of the founders that's leading on the investment process. But the deeper you get into the investor process, the more you're going to be engaging the rest of your team members. And it's important for everyone to sing from the same book and to be aligned. And so when you're doing your tech DD, you're probably going to have a workshop or a meeting where you involve your CTO. Similarly, on the commercial DD, you'll have your chief commercial officer. The CFO will be involved with anything about the financial model. And so you want to make sure that when all of these different people come on board to speak with the investor, they're not saying things that are not aligned with what the others were saying. So it's important for the executive team to be well aligned on what they're seeking, what the objectives are, and what the story is. And on accelerators and programs, which I appreciate, many people on the call will either be running accelerators or will be part of the ecosystem of startups. I think it's important to realize that founders and startups will go through multiple accelerator programs and they'll go through multiple different programs. And depending on the stage, the importance of that program will differ. And so, if this is a first-time founder at the pre-seed stage and they're going through an incubator, at that stage, you really need to be hands-on. You need to be guiding them. You need to be giving them materials that they can build on, and they really need to be involved in the process. But if you're engaging for, Series A or post-seed or Series A startup that's been around for a few years, they've already raised some investment. At that stage, forcing the startup to be present in all of the workshops, in all of the meetings, is just not viable, and it's not a good use of the founders' time because these founders, they've been through the ropes, they've received a lot of this training, and oftentimes there's a lot of repetition between different programs. And I say this having run accelerator programs and having seen how similar one program is to another. And so then requiring the founders to be present at all times just isn't productive. And if anything, it harms the startup when they should be spending their time with investors, with potential clients, or out there meeting people. So I think having that flexibility and recognizing what stage the startup is in is important. I think a good example is there's an accelerator called Third Derivative that some of you might be familiar with, based out of the US. Their whole program is provided for free online. So anything on investor readiness, go-to-market strategy, business model, all of that material is provided online, so anyone can look at it at their own time and go through it at their own pace. And none of the startups part of the program are being forced to consume that material. So I think providing that flexibility is very important. And the main value, again, it depends on stages. I'm kind of thinking of it more from a Series A and a bit later stage. But the main value that the startups see in these programs is the network and the ecosystem that you can open up to them. And so that means the key things would be if you can get them in front of investors, in front of partners, you can connect them to potential clients. If you give them opportunities to enter panel discussions and presentations, that's the biggest value that you can provide. So, if you can go through a whole process to select startups, and instead of having them sit through various workshops and presentations, if you can just connect them to one potential client or put them in front of investors, that will be so valuable to them. So I think trying to focus on those sorts of outcomes is probably the main thing that I would encourage many accelerators and programs to focus on. And another thing that's important with this in the network and ecosystem is having in-person events. And so that's usually, culminates in some demo day or perhaps an alumni community. But when you have an in-person event over drinks and you can get people to meet face to face, that's also incredibly valuable to start building those connections. And then outside of the network and ecosystem, the other thing that I see as very valuable from these programs is the feedback that can be provided. And again, it doesn't have to be super in depth, but if you're doing a pitch training, before the demo day, if you do a run through of the pitch, just giving advice on, how they're communicating, how they're standing on stage, the order of the story of their material, whether if something in the pitch isn't as clear, giving that clear feedback is also always useful. Um, so yeah, that combination of feedback slash mentorship along with the network and ecosystem, I think that's what the startups will value the most of engaging with different types of startup accelerators and programs. And yeah, so that was, I appreciate it was a bit perhaps short and sweet, but that was the content that I had on um, investor identification materials and accelerator programs. And I'd be very open to if there's any questions or any discussion to have at the moment. I'm available, so happy to hear from the rest of you as well. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, I think it was very interesting and 20 minutes on the dot, so perfect. So if anyone has any questions, you can either type it in the chat or just open your mic and ask the question. That's fine too. Okay, so far I don't hear anything. So, okay, go ahead,
Oh,
Henry.
yeah, I mean, this is a really great presentation, and I was constantly seeing myself nodding in the with the picture of myself, because you are so spot on a lot of things. But I would I'm especially fond of the example of you mentioned about the flexibility in programs and accelerators and programs, and I mean you really have to, and for me, for myself, but also I guess for a lot of you guys behind the other screens, this acknowledgement of the time spent and how much time the startups spend wisely. And these programs, we should, I think it's way more important to actually listen to what the startups are saying and what their needs are and guiding them instead of let's say, giving specific advice, but actually listening, guiding, navigating, and so on. Because oftentimes, that's at least that's what I see. Um, uh, they already know what way you starters want to go. You just need some kind of confirmation or letting the thought bubbles out there. So I just it's not necessarily a question. It's just I just want to echo what you already said with an example. So yeah, thank you for it. And I mean, this presentation is yeah, it's really really great. I'd love to have a talk with you later on as well, Al. Thanks.
Absolutely, and thanks a lot, Henrik. And yeah, I definitely agree. And in my experience, it's often the case that an accelerator, they develop a curriculum and they've got it kind of one size fits all, and they're more focused on delivering what they've prepared rather than, as you say, identifying the specific challenges of the startups and helping them out. So yeah, I think your point around trying to understand their needs is also a very important one that I think, I could definitely add as another bullet point. So having those one-to-one sessions where you just hear them out, I think that can bring so much value.
Yeah, we have a question from Antoine. He says, "How do you know the thesis of investors?"
Yeah, so good question. I would say twofold. Ideally, if they are good investors, they'll have the thesis on the website. So if you go to the website of whatever VC, somewhere, whether it's on the front page or somewhere, it will say, what are we looking for? And they will clarify, if it's a European investor, they'll usually say our scope is EU plus UK, and then sometimes plus the US. And so that means that if you've got a startup that's based out of Singapore or the UAE, then it's just not even relevant, or it's not worth wasting their time of the startup or the investor in trying to connect. And so one thing is the website of the VCs. Another thing is sometimes they don't make it as clear as to what their thesis is on the website. And that's usually, I would say, more with family offices, where they're a bit more under the radar, and they don't have kind of well-developed websites and online presence. And so in those instances, it's about connecting with the investors. So once you know an investor as a startup ecosystem, builder or accelerator, one of the first things that you should do is to understand that investor's thesis. So even if it's not online, knowing them personally and then jotting down the key points around the sectors that they look at and the stage of business is another one. And then the third way is through online lists. You'll find there's Crunchbase and TechCrunch and PitchBook and all these different platforms that summarize lots of investors. So you can look into those third-party lists, and they usually also categorize investors by their thesis in terms of stage, sector, geography, etc. So I think, yeah, between the VC's website, engagement with the VC, and through third-party platforms, you should be able to understand what is that investor looking for, and then keeping an up-to-date list of that, I think will make everyone's life easier, because it also helps the accelerator to have a good understanding of what the investor is looking for, because that means that you can actually connect them with the relevant startups and make those connections.
All right. Thank you very much. I think we have no other questions from the public so far. So I suggest that we go to Henrik and Water Tech Tours. Thank you so much for the presentation again, Alp. And if there's any questions in the meantime, please put it on the chat as well. Thank
Cheers.
you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alp. Yeah, and Roxanne, I'll just share. Hopefully you can see it. I'm trying to put it in presentation mode if it's possible to hit the buttons. Always seems to be a problem. Okay. All visible? All good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for letting me in and have a few words on this. I mean, what Albert already said, I might repeat some of these points, but later on. But yeah, for now, just a few words on Clean, a bit about Tech Tour, the organization, a bit about the event itself, Tech Tour Water Tech, and then I kind of summed it up as the journey for startups and what they go through in order to join the Tech Tour Water Tech. Of course, Alp, you know a bit about it, having been there, preparing the deck and so on. But also a bit about the investor readiness and some of the experiences that I have gained working with um, uh, a bunch of startups, I would say. Just before we enter the Clean part, a few words on myself. I've been part of Clean for the last 5 years, and building up our startup initiatives and the strategy how we want to help the startups in Denmark. Within water tech and clean tech. So being in various projects together with Roxanne as well. So yeah, but we at Clean are partner in this acceleration program called Beyond Beta, where we have helped a bit more than 600 startups for the last 7 or 8 years altogether. We know a thing or two about it, but I think maybe the most important learning on this is the flexibility, is the the ability to actually listen to the needs of startups and what they are actually looking for, even though they are saying one thing, but what is it that they are actually looking for? So that's really what keeps me going, and think this is an important area to constantly be better at. So yeah, just yeah, a few words on clean. You can get the slides afterwards if and dive into them if you want. I've agreed with Roxanne, but those of you who don't know Clean, we are the cluster organization of water and environmental technology, clean tech, and we strive to make the Danish companies world leaders in our field, and blah blah blah, blah and so on. But what that actually means is that we are quite privileged in Denmark, that we have I would say, a bit more than decent water environment and water infrastructure, let's say. Let's take that as an example. So we constantly try to build the connections cross borders, cross sectors, in order to like find the best collaboration partners, the best innovation partners and brokers across industries, across countries. So, I mean, if you have any opportunities or any technologies yourselves out there, I mean, reach out and let's have a talk on it. As you can see, we have this strategy house, as most of you do, but in the bottom of it, you see these 5 application areas, which is the water tech and the clean tech, in the way we see it, at least, how we differ it and divide it. A bit more detail here is the water in the technosphere, the climate adaptation areas, waste, resources, materials, air, soil, water, and nature. So when you look at these 5 application areas, see it as a toolbox of technologies helping making the green transition possible in various sectors. I mean, at the moment we see a lot of things going on within the waste, resources, materials, the water and the technospheres. That's per definition our 2 biggest areas. But at the moment we see a lot of movement going into soil, water, nature, also kind of a marine biodiversity, and a lot of new technologies and a lot of new stuff being invented here because of, yeah, biodiversity crisis, especially in Denmark. A bit about our members, don't want to hang on to that, but what we are actually helping all these companies and more to what we are actually helping them with is helping them navigate, back to my point to Alp's presentation earlier, because we see the Danish SMEs with a clean tech solution, startups with a clean tech solution, water tech solution in the center of it, of this ecosystem of madness. So what what we are in the world to do is being at their side constantly, and always being ready to like helping them with finding strategic partners, investors, finding the right other clusters, grant givers, other municipalities, or utilities that they could work together with. But we basically help them navigate in this. And the reason why I highlighted the 3 circles, the strategic partners, the investors, and the other clusters here, is because that's really where I think tech to water tech comes in and make a perfect fit. And I want to dive a bit into this right now, because as Alp said, one thing is the relation, the investment and the pitching part of the event, but on the basis of the events we have held already, I see the community and the relationships and the network that has been developed on the basis of these events as being the most what's it called? Important. That's the word. Sorry. So first, a little bit about Tech Tour. It's a pan-European organization developing, executing all sorts of investor events within three overall categories: digital and deep tech, health and med tech, and then this sustainability and energy, where where they have more than 1,000 expert investors engaged in. So Tech Tour isn't necessarily the most commonly known investor event, but as I have experienced, they are more than it's one of the more active investor networks and events, especially. Yeah. So I had a talk with an American startup for a couple of months ago, and he was like, "Okay, this is actually the one of the greatest events I had ever been to when it comes to relationship building." And I mean, I was so happy to hear that, because one thing is the ability to pitch, but another important part of it is also the one-to-one meetings that you actually are able to have on the uh, as part of the 2-day program. But I'll get back to that later. Yeah. So this is just some numbers of it. As you can see, it's more than, and I think these numbers are actually from summer 2025, but close to 900 entrepreneur pitches in total for the last 12 months. And they are divided, as you can see here. But as you see here in the left corner, I hope you can see my marker. The one-to-one meetings is, apart from the selection reviews, is what by far is the most used activity under this umbrella of Tech Tour. So what is it that the Tech Tour organization does so well regarding the Tech Tour Water Tech? We have been partnered with Tech Tour for the last this is the 4th year running. We are setting up this partnership, and we did so because it was at least when we started this concept, this thinking of how should we actually have a water-related investor event in Europe. It was on the basis of there wasn't any, to our knowledge at least. So this is I'm looking to be wiser here, but I still haven't seen a water-specific investor event in Europe apart from this, only with a focus on water. And I mean, if there are, all great, but we see a very active commitment, very huge interest, increasing visibility and competition in getting to join this event. So I think this was the first year we had 80 applicants for 35 seats to 35 spots for the first edition of the Tech Tour. And then the numbers just increased year by year, from 80 to 95 to 110 last year. And I assume that we will go even higher this year as well. Yeah, I have a video. You can see it afterwards. But when you get the presentation, it was just to get kind of the feel of the vibe being there. So these are the tech tracks where when we talk about water, we talk about water technology. We have, together with the advisory board, we have decided on these 5 technology tracks in which we kind of almost try to sum up all the amazing things water technology companies actually do, trying to sum them up within these 5 umbrellas. And of course, there are some that doesn't necessarily fit a category. They are still more than welcome to join and to apply. But a bit about the journey. You can see here. It's we just kicked off this call for applications, the first step. And then I think the deadline is in the beginning of March. And then we go through the selection process, announce the selected companies, have an entrepreneur kickoff, and then they will join an academy. We'll have the on-site event, and we will have the on-site meetings, one-to-one meetings on-site as well. So and it's the 3rd and 4th of June this year in Aarhus. Looking very much forward to it. But a bit. I'll come back to the journey later on, but these are just the important dates. As you see here, the application deadline is the 6th of March, and the 21st of April, the companies are selected. And then we have this online academy training session on the 14th of May. But back to the journey, you can say. The thing I see is, I mean, you can really take Alp's points here and implement them directly into the company's pitch decks and applications, because it's really, really, really important that you are able to communicate what you're doing in a simple way, in a structured way, in a storytelling, a convincing way, because all these 100 plus applications to join this call are working for a greater cause. It's not like some of them are bad guys looking for money. No, it's actually 100 plus amazing people, amazing technologies competing for a few minutes of fame, a few glimpses of possibility of joining this event. So all solving great problems in the world. It's just a matter of how do we actually, which problem is bigger than the other and which solution is more applicable and more realistic to implement than the other. So you really have to be very, very concrete on this application process. What is your unique selling point? What story do you tell? And how do you convince it? I mean, I work with a couple of startups, and within the water tech, it's very, very nerdy in a good way, but very, very technology specific, and that doesn't necessarily convince like the selection panel and in which there are a lot of investors as well. The selection panel, because if they don't understand your technology, they don't see the greater cause and the opportunities lies within your technology if you aren't able to translate it into let's say a common understandable language. So you really have to be aware of how do you present your technology so that it's not the technological feature you present, but what kind of value does it bring. But not even that is enough. You have to convince what the benefits are for a given for the investors or for the customers that you're actually trying to sell to. So that translation exercise is a really, really tough one to a tough one to crack. And that goes back to Alp's presentation as well. Having when startups are giving pitches, how do they perform? How do they act as a team? What story do they tell? Are they convincing? Is there pitching techniques? Is it good? Is it a natural way of telling the story and so on? So just note that down. And then the selected companies will be announced, and we had this entrepreneur kickoff where they are presenting to each other and let's say having like the first intro meeting to each other, and then they will join at this academy session where the tech tour way of doing things, they are trained in it, and it's I've been part of it for the last 2 years, and it's really you can also give some examples here, Alb, if you want, but it's really coming being very, very specific on your 1-minute pitch. You're starting with a 1-minute pitch, nailing down what value do you actually bring, and then you take a more, I think it's 8 minutes deep dive presentation into what you're actually doing as a startup. So you have to have like 2 pitches in one, but not, and it's very important, not necessarily to close a deal or find the right investor, but to make the hook what is the interesting point in the startup's pitch, in the scale-up's pitch here. Yeah. And then to the grand finale, when the 35 startups have been trained, have joined the academy, they will join the on-site event in Aarhus this year, where there are also one-to-one meetings. And this on-site event is, I think, all about relationship building and all about networking and drinking coffee, tea, water, and yeah, getting to know other entrepreneurs, other and other investors and industry experts as well. And especially these one-to-one meetings are very, very important. I think it's actually it's possible to book one-to-one meetings all through the day, but we see tables constantly filled up with people who want to interact with each other. And I want to give you an example of actually a very early stage startup I work with called Rupsup, a Danish company from the city of Odense. They are very, very early on their TRL scale, but they managed to join the tech tour for the first year running, and they weren't focused on this finding an investor necessarily. They weren't looking for it at that given time, but they knew that they were going to look at it for within 6 months, which is why they started already to building these relations, finding out, okay, is this actually the forum where we will find our next best investor that can bring us to the next scale? So this is a very deep tech company within water tech. I can tell you a bit more about them afterwards if you care, but they have a very, very long development horizon. So they need a lot of money to develop that technology. And for that, it's important to think funding strategy accordingly to their traditional strategy, right? But also, where do we need our investors in? Where do we need other kind of funding and so on? So they were really focused on chasing that relationship building. I mean, they booked a lot of one-to-one meetings, and the investors booked them into one-to-one meetings as well because they were so early stage and wanted to like, hey, we aren't necessarily interested in investing in you right now, but we really want to get to know you because what you're doing is amazing. So that is, and they are still talking together today, and it's like, yeah, 2 years since the first meeting. So that kind of goes to this investor readiness. I mean, Alf, what you already said, copy paste, but I completely echo it. But in order to like build on it, the way at least this is from my perspective, I'm more very curious to hear your experience as well. But on the basis of close to 40 startups I've helped, it's more like this navigator role that is quite important. So when I talk with the startups say, okay, is the way to Rome for you, is that actually through the investor? Is it the investor? Are you ready for an investor and are you ready for an investment? Is this the right way for you to go? What kind of values do you want to have in your team? Does that correspond to the values a potential investor will bring in and so on? I mean, there's a lot of groundwork, homework you need to do beforehand and making sure that this is actually the right thing you're doing and set the right team right. The CFO, the CTO, the CEO have to sing the same song from the same book. You heard that earlier today, and I mean that really also comes to show when you're presenting, and it's a great way of when, let's say you are 3 people pitching together, we see the dynamics at the pitching. And investors want to de-risk and they want to see, okay, are you aligned? Is there some kind of disagreements, minor disagreement, or are you completely aligned on what you are set in the world to do? So yeah, you need to find the right capabilities, the right set of competencies and skills in your company, and also, and I think that is actually way more important. Also, think about what do you think is fun to work with. I had an example of two co-founders developing this startup together, and the one was the salesman, and the other one was the technology lead, and they had those roles respectively. But it turned out after, let's say, they had a lot of disagreements, and it turned out after a session or 10 that they were actually, the CTO actually wanted to sell more, and the CEO, the sales representative, actually wanted to make the backbone and the underlying parameters and the data work in order for them to sell, and finding the right arguments and points, unique selling points, and so on. So they actually shifted roles after after these 6 months, which helped them greatly. But it was just quite fun to see, even though you aren't on paper. You aren't motivated by the things you're doing. You are set to do on paper, but I hope that makes sense. Then have this business plan and financial health. Have a plan lined out, presented convincing. And it also aligns with this last point. What is your strategy? Are you aware of it? Are you aware of the risks? But also, what is your funding strategy? What does the funding strategy look for RUBSUP for the next 6 months, the next 12 months? What is scenario A, B, and C? Let's say we get an investor, we don't get an investor, we make a joint venture, let's say. What are the 3 scenarios we can work with? So having that overview and calmness in presenting it, also comes down to something investors really want to see. Yep. I mean, I'm not quite sure how well we are in time, Roxanne, but that's basically all from me. And you're more than welcome to connect if you want, and reach out. I'll be more than happy to hear your thoughts and your experience as well. At least now you heard quite a lot from me, but I'm very open to hear questions or reflections and so on. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Yeah, very interesting, and indeed very on time. So yeah,
Okay.
great. So if anyone has any questions, please go ahead. Feel free to open your mic and ask any questions. Okay, we have a question in the chat, and it's from Antoine, and he says, does Clean intervene in global South regions for development cooperation frameworks?
No, not necessarily, Antoine. I'm not quite. Do you refer to anything specific? Intervene? Will we intervene? Because I'm not aware that we are doing that. No. I mean, if you can see any way we can contribute, I mean, that would be great. But
I was just
yeah.
wondering if we could just partnership in project we are launching in Global South, because we have a lot of projects around water, especially in Benin, in Guinea, and I think your expertise in your network would be valuable in those projects.
Yeah. Thank you, Antoine. It was a bit difficult to hear what you were saying, but I think I got the sum of it. I mean, you're more than welcome to reach out to me, and let's see if we can work things out. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So if there's not any other questions, maybe I can ask a question, and that would be, When would you advise a company to seek investment, actually?
Okay, that's a that's a great it's a great and yet tricky question, Roxanne, because it really depends on the on the given startup. I mean, if you are a deep tech, let's say rubs up, I would recommend that you are aware of when money is needed, and not only money, but also when um, when the need of extra knowledge around, let's say, a problem owner, or in you need an extra set of skills internally. So what kind, and it also comes back to what kind of investment do you actually want, and what kind of investment do you need. But I mean, if you are looking for investors, I would think about it actually quite early on and saying, okay, what is it that you actually want to develop? And what is it that you're actually and what kind of must-win battle is there along the way in order to reach that goal? So I would reach out quite early on to investors, not for finding an investor, but in order for the relationship building. So if you're looking for pre-seed funding, for seed funding, you can do that. But on the other hand, if you go out too early, your valuation might be significantly lower than if you have, let's say, used we are quite privileged in Denmark. We have a lot of soft funding initiatives. So if we, the company can, let's say, use soft funding for developing that technology, getting a patent, setting up the team, finding the first 10 customers, finding the first 100. I mean, and then engage with an investor on a more let's say on second base, then that would of course result in a higher valuation. Yeah. So I mean, think about your funding strategy, but I cannot give you a general answer here. It really depends on the given startup, but it's tricky question.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Clear. We did get some messages in the chat, and it's about the engagement of Clean in Kenya, and they were asking when it is and when it's happening. So I do not know. Maybe you do.
First engagement with Clean last year in Kenya, and we will invite you to 2026 again. Thank you. That sounds amazing. But I don't know when it is. Oh, October. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it would. Thank you, Collins. Let's. I mean, that would probably be my colleague Scott. And I can forward you, if you send me some info. I will be happy to forward it to him. Or if you don't already, you know him. Great. All good.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you for the presentation.
Sure.
And now we're gonna move to the workshop. And for that part, I will stop the recording. And basically, the workshop is going to be around 45 minutes in total. What we're gonna do is that we're gonna map investors via interactive board of Miro. I will share the link in the chat, and then you will be in different breakout rooms and work on that. And of course, you can always call on me or Henrik or Alp for some guidance. And then after 20 minutes, we're gonna all join back and discuss the findings or the mapping and etc. I suggest we have maybe a 2 minutes pause before we go to the second part. And for the second part, I will need you to, of course, turn on your cameras and your mics as well. So yeah, I see you at 10:06, and I will send the link in here in the chat and give further explanations. So if you want to have a tea or something, go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
First.